As you know, and as has already been discussed here at the hearing, I'm very concerned about the use of the funds for the enforcement part of the plan. We have never had an argument in this committee about whether we need to give the IRS the necessary resources to bring itself technologically into the 21st century and to get the adequate response to the taxpayers that they now don't get, so that the IRS can even answer the telephone, so to speak, when taxpayers are trying to communicate with them. The battle has been over this completely uncontrolled and undefined commitment of 60% of the $80 billion to enforcement. And there's been a lot of talk about, well, we only want to enforce this against those who are rich, super rich tax cheats. But yet when I brought that amendment I referenced earlier, no one would support it and put that right into the law. So I want to get into that. From the IRS's own data, the two largest single components of the tax gap, that's the difference between taxes owed and paid, are small businesses, small business income, and individual non-business income. In response to my questions, the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation told us that these shortfalls are overwhelming. They are upwards of 90%. And upwards to 90% of these shortfalls fall on hardworking Americans with modest incomes, far under $400,000. Now, Secretary Yellen reportedly has said she's directed the IRS not to use this somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 billion to enforce against people with incomes less than $400,000. My colleague, the chair, has said that is not to be done. What I want to know is, how strong will you make that commitment? The language we've gotten from the Secretary was in this term of, well, we want to get balance. I don't want to know balance. I want to know whether you are going to commit today that the plan will not allow this supersized enforcement money to be utilized against people who make less than $400,000 per year. Will you make that commitment?
Senator, yes, and I made that commitment in my official statement for the record. I am committed to Secretary Yellen's directive on how the audit should move forward under the Inflation Reduction Act, and look forward to working with you and you holding me accountable for that.
Well, thank you. Secretary Yellen's statement leaves a lot of wiggle room. I want to be sure you know that I don't expect to see wiggle room in this commitment.